know you've seen Black Adam and that super cameo in the post-credit scene, aka Mr. Henry Cavill. And I sincerely hope that for those of you who are so excited about this and have waited so long for his return, that you had the theatrical experience you were hoping for. I'm hearing that some of you have, with your audience erupting in cheers, but at my press screening there was more of a what the heck kind of reaction and like nervous giggles from the audience. But it is a big deal. And I think that many people are walking out of the movie, no matter how they feel about Henry Cavill's potential return, wondering, what does this mean exactly? And it means there's a chance. But Henry Cavill, I can tell you, has not signed any deals yet. He has only returned for 2 cameos here and at the end of The Flash. No deals. I know that some people are trying to tell you that he has deals. He does not. His manager, his team even recently admitted that this week. This is a gamble. This is a gamble. And by the way, Dwayne Johnson did not bring back Henry Cavill out of the goodness of his heart so that you could get Man of Steel 2. He brought back Henry Cavill so that he could take over DC. Let's discuss. There's so much to discuss. This is definitely going to be a very interesting conversation, and it's going to give you a realistic picture of what's actually happening here. So yes, Henry Cavill might have met with Marvel. He definitely did. And he might be on the minds of the Bond team. I know he met with Marvel. I'm not sure if he's on the minds of the Bond team, but he should be. He definitely has a strong fan base, and I actually think he's perfect for Bond. In fact, it was down to him and Daniel Craig back for Casino Royale. But interestingly enough, they didn't think Henry Cavill had the physique to be Bond back then. But Henry Cavill sure took care of that. And I think his time has come. I think he would, I don't know if maybe they would feel he has too much baggage. Maybe they want someone fresh doesn't have as much exposure. But I got to tell you, I think Henry Cavill would be, based on his work in Mission Impossible, I actually think that Bond is the best option for him if he could get it. But from what I've heard about Henry Cavill, he wants to be a star, and he wants to be one, if not yesterday, today. He's very impatient. I think he feels he played Superman, for Pete's sake. Why isn't he a bigger deal? He doesn't really want to, it's tough. I think he's very nice to his fans, but if you talk to anybody in the business, the experiences aren't great. But again, I think he's fantastic as a star, and I think when he's used right, he's gold. Like as the Paul Newman saying goes, in the right role, I'm golden. And I think that's very much the situation with Henry Cavill. Is the right role Superman? I actually don't think it is. We're going to discuss that. And I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts down below. Now, not only is Henry Cavill impatient to be a star, and he might feel that getting back in the super suit is the best way to do that, but his management also isn't exactly impartial. Dany Garcia is a producer on Black Adam. It's her movie. And she is in business with her ex-husband, Dwayne Johnson, across the board. They not only have that new football league together, but she's the co-founder of his production company that makes all of his movies and made this one. She benefits not just from Black Adam being a hit, and of course Henry Cavill, because she's his manager. She gets a chunk of his salary. But she and Dwayne Johnson, make no mistake, are making a play for DC as a whole. With Dwayne Johnson not only making his plans clear for the future of the franchise with himself front and center, but he's even said he'd like to recommend who should take over DC Films for Warner Brothers Discovery. And I would suspect it's one of the other 2 individuals who work for his company, Dany Garcia's brother Hiram, or perhaps Beau Flynn. I could see him suggesting either one of them. Quite the land grab, and I don't blame him. And I agree that getting Henry Cavill into Black Adam is his best chance at succeeding in that goal. But talk about a Casino Royale, a number of people have put all their chips on Black. This is, again, as I said, quite the gamble, which makes it really interesting to watch. At first, as I reported to you many times, Dwayne Johnson could not get Henry Cavill into this movie, with all of the Warner Brothers brass dead set against it. Why? Well, as I've also told you, Henry Cavill has been difficult. It's because he feels he should be treated like a star, whereas other people feel he has to work his way up. But he's always backed Warner Brothers. In fact, he was the only cast member of Zack Snyder's Justice League not to support the release of the Snyder Cut until after it was approved. The only one who never supported it on social media. Now, I'm sure some of you will point out that he showed up for the release of it and the announcement, but that's once it was approved. However, when he refused to do the Shazam cameo, trying to get creative control over Man of Steel 2 and a bigger paycheck, which I also reported to you, resulting in an embarrassing headless cameo for that movie, well, that made him dead to the Warner Brothers execs, despite his loyalty in the past. And they plan to embarrass him right back with another headless cameo at the end of Black Adam. That's what was in store. But then Dwayne Johnson got booed at Comic-Con. And that was a real eye-opener. That really lit a fire under him, as one would expect. And as the people who booed him intended it to. I believe The Rock accurately realized he'd be hounded by fans for the rest of his career if he didn't bring back Henry Cavill as Superman. And realizing the stakes were that high, he went over Walter Hamada's dead, who was a lame duck head of DC anyway, and he got the new heads of Warner Brothers to agree to a short cameo. A deal he revealed, as I told you, was hammered out over Labor Day weekend, and the cameo shot in September. Don't let anyone tell you it was earlier. That's the timeline. And while the cameras were rolling, that's when Henry Cavill shot a little cameo for the end of The Flash as well, a movie that was originally supposed to kill him off for good. But now, the movie will end with him firmly in place in the, thanks to The Flash, altered timeline of the DCEU. Only question is that DCEU going to continue? What is going on with DC? Well, a lot of it depends on the Black Adam box office, which we will be watching very carefully. And also, of course, for all of Zazzy's talk about a 10-year plan like Marvel, he suddenly seems more interested in short-term gain, perhaps because he plans to sell. And Dwayne Johnson, I'm sure, would be fine with that, because who makes Fast and Furious, which, helped make Dwayne Johnson the movie star that he is today until he got into a feud with Vin Diesel and quit? Universal! He knows those executives quite well, so he'd be happy to work with them, I'm sure. Now, according to that promotional piece in The Hollywood Reporter, there are lots of options for you to get excited about. They want you to feel there's a future for DC. With Dwayne Johnson and James Gunn battling it out for control, I suspect that this is not only to get you excited, but kind of a way for the brass to test what you're more excited about, what gets you excited. So they're like, it's between Dwayne Johnson and James Gunn, because in the absence of any real DC leadership, talent is in charge. And Matt Reeves and Todd Phillips are off in their own little corners playing with their toys. But talk about gauging fan interest. What by far and away excited fans the most about this article was the tease of Man of Steel 2, which should mean that you're all going to show up for Black Adam to support Henry Cavill, but that doesn't look like it's the case. We'll see what happens. We will see very soon what the box office is. But anyway, this is a carrot clearly put out by the studio, because Dwayne Johnson and Dany Garcia aren't about to let Charles freaking Roven benefit from all their hard work to bring back Henry Cavill. They're not going to hand him over to this guy. See, Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy might be promising you a Man of Steel 2 in that article, with the DC version of Avi Arad, Charles Roven producing. But truth is, if Warner Brothers Discovery was serious about a Man of Steel 2, they'd already have a screenwriter instead of being looking for one. They don't even have a short list. It's just something they're thinking of doing if the box office is really good. And also, they would be announcing a deal with Henry Cavill. But as I said, Henry Cavill doesn't have a deal yet. Dwayne Johnson, Dany Garcia, and Henry Cavill are gambling that fans will live up to their promises, or is that threats on social media, and they will come out in droves once Warner Brothers brings him back. That's what you guys have all been saying. Well, here it is. Let's see. However, DC's hardcore fans have a long track record of not showing up despite all their social media chatter. And sure enough, Black Adam's tracking is not great. We'll see what happens this weekend, and over the course, who knows, maybe it could have really strong holds. But how many times is Warner Brothers Discovery going to fall for this social media, bait and switch? If Black Adam is a hit, or is even a solid performer, if it's good enough to keep Dwayne Johnson's DC dreams alive, as I've been saying, Dwayne Johnson wants his next movie to be Black Adam versus Superman and the Justice League, and he'd love to throw the Suicide Squad in there as well. A real WWE SmackDown to rival the upcoming MCU Secret Wars. On the one hand, as I've said, I think this is actually a pretty good idea. Although now that I've seen Black Adam, the execution would have to be much better than that. Also, I gotta tell you, as good as he looks in the Black Adam post-credit scene, in fact, he looks more like Superman than he ever has before. Henry Cavill, to me, is just not Superman. He looks like Superman, but even in this 5 seconds, his delivery is off. He was going to be a great evil Superman. I was so behind that, which is what Zack Snyder had planned for him. For that, he would have been perfect. He was perfectly cast for that. That's what got me excited about Henry Cavill in the role in the first place. But it's taken too long to do that. And at this point, how can anyone hope to top Anthony Starr's Homelander? Recently, in honor of his birthday, an interview with the late Christopher Reeve was making the rounds on social media, where he said that he felt the defining quality of Superman, a role that he originated on the big screen. Of course, there had been live-action Superman before, but Christopher Reeve said he felt that Superman was a friend to all, and that in the difficult modern world that seems so angry, and this was an interview in the 1980s, by the way, so it just goes to show you the more things change, the more they stay the same. I'll put a link to this down below. It's a fabulous clip. I mean, someone who works at Warner, if they had a head of DC, they would really keep this in mind. That Superman is a friend that anyone can count on, and Henry Cavill just simply does not have that quality. He's got lots of other qualities, though. Don't get me wrong. I think, as I said, Henry Cavill can be amazing. He's excellent in The Witcher. I love him in that. And he was phenomenal in Mission Impossible. I am curious about Christopher McQuarrie's Superman pitch for Cavill that Warner Brothers, when they hated him, turned down flat. But again, if Henry Cavill's Superman is to continue, make no mistake, he's going to be a supporting character to Dwayne Johnson. That's why Dwayne Johnson brought him back. Not to give you Henry Cavill back to make you happy. I mean, maybe somewhere down the line, Dwayne Johnson and Dany Garcia will produce a Man of Steel 2 for you. But in the short term, he is going to, he's like a little small assist to Dwayne Johnson. Next, Dwayne Johnson wants him to be a huge assist in this big Black Adam versus Superman Justice League Suicide Squad movie. But anyway, I think Cavill should have waited for an offer from Marvel, to be honest with you. Or to see if he could get Bond. I think, again, he would have been a fabulous Bond, as he has that cool indifference, an edge to him. I think you need to understand where Henry Cavill thrives, and I think it's in an edgy, aloof space, which just simply isn't Superman. Now, how long will Warner Brothers Discovery keep him and the fans in a holding pattern this time before they decide if they're going to offer him a new deal? I think that with this cameo, he's passed on Marvel. I think the Marvel ship has sailed because it's like now he's back as Superman. What's Kevin Feige going to do with that? But maybe he could still get Bond because they've decided to take a break as they decide how to reset the franchise post Daniel Craig, who of course inhabited it for so long. For many reasons. So I think they're trying to rework that. And so, but again, I don't know if they want to go with somebody new, or, like a Discovery, or if they want to go with Cavill. I think Cavill, again, would be a great Bond. So that's how and why Henry Cavill has returned to Superman and the reality of what might happen next. What do you think? What do you think of the cameo? What do you think of Henry Cavill as Superman? I know some of you are going to be aggressively defending him, and that's awesome. He has an amazing, very strong, hardcore fan base, which but again, you have to wonder, why doesn't he get more parts? I keep telling you, it's weird. But anyway, what do you really think that returning as Superman is the best career move for him? What would you advise him to do? I mean, it's a little bit too late. He really should have waited to see what Marvel would have offered him. Marvel's at a point where everyone in Hollywood is going to be in there. But what do you think? Share your thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.